What a save from Mark Owen.
Please welcome Spencer Owen.
Hello boys, how you doing? The Wembley Cup is a little bit like Soccer Aid, but for YouTubers. We called it hashtag because we all worked in social media, as simple as that. Steven Gerrard played in it, Patrick Kluivert, JJ Koch, kind of a dream, too good to pass up, and that was when we entered non-league. Kind of back-to-back promotions, we couldn't have done it quicker. See literally 10 football pitches with yellow and blue shirts on, all with a hashtag badge on. That's another great story. She was the club captain when we took over. Played with like Rio Ferdinand, Mark Noble, been nutmegged by JJ Koch, an absolute honour. I could be a world-class goalkeeper. So I'm a big Rob McElhenney fan, and Ryan Reynolds as well. So Azpilicueta owns 4% of hashtag. I always say we've reverse engineered a club. It's better for people not to like us than not have an opinion about us, because it means that we're doing something right.
What a save from Mark Owen.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Yours Mine Away podcast with me, Mark Howard, and my mate producer Ben. Today I've got an unbelievable guest with a great story, one that I'm so fascinated in. Please welcome Spencer Owen.
Hello boys, how you doing, all right?
For those that don't know or that live under a rock, Spencer owns and is co-chairman of Hashtag United, one of the biggest trending companies in probably obviously in football, but around the world now. Your marketing, everything is just flying, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy nearly 7 years. It'll be 7 years in about a month, actually, since we started it. And we've got a lot going on. We've got a lot going on now from when we started. It's been a great journey. And we're having a good season across the board as well. So we're hoping this is going to be a big year for us.
So obviously you've started hashtag from scratch. It's a brand new club that everyone that on the online space would know about, and a lot of the younger audience would know, but the older audience maybe still don't. How did it all come about?
Cool, how long you got? So, okay. So, yeah, I mean, I was a YouTuber. I still am a YouTuber. I was making videos for a long time. This is my 16th year making YouTube videos now, right? So it's been a while. But what was it? 2016, we'd just done a big charity game called the Wembley Cup. So Wembley Cup is a little bit like Soccer Aid, but for YouTubers, which sounds like a no-brainer now, right? But back in 2015 when we did the first one, we had to really sort of pitch it to why would you even do this? Why would anyone want to watch YouTubers play a football game, right? So it's my concept. I come up with it, and I've got all the big YouTubers to play in it. The first year was Spencer FC was my team, and we played the Sidemen, right? So we made, and you guys obviously know the Sidemen now, but again, the Sidemen were probably only a year or two old then, but obviously JJ, all these guys were flying. And we were all the biggest sort of YouTubers playing in it. The F2 boys played in it. I mean, the funny thing is, if you took the subscriber numbers of everyone then, compared them to what those same people have now, it'd be great because they're just exponential growth over the last 7-8 years. So I pitched it to brands to try and sponsor it because I'd been working in YouTube and stuff for a while. Like even outside of my channel, I'd worked for other channels like Copper 90 and things like this. So I understood a little bit about how it worked, and no one was really doing that sort of thing at that time. I was a bit older than the other lads. So got EE to sponsor it, and they were the sponsors of Wembley Stadium, still are. So they were like, I wasn't even pitching their game at Wembley. I was trying to get everyone to go to Vegas, and we were going to play in like a tournament out there and basically have fun and make content out of it. And they were like, why don't you do it at Wembley? I didn't know that was an option. Let's do it. So Wembley Cup was born. First year we did that. Behind closed doors, we didn't have fans. We didn't know if we'd get anyone to come. But it got 18 million views, the game on YouTube, right? And that's just the game. We did a whole YouTube series promoting it. So I was like, okay, because I was making mostly FIFA content at this point, like gaming stuff. But I was like, right, well, football's always been my passion. How can I do this more regularly? Can't do a Wembley Cup every weekend because everyone's busy, right? And it would lose its appeal if it was a weekly thing. It's a one-off thing. So what's the next series I can do? And I obviously played football. I had my mates. We played football together. So we just started filming us playing games. We gave it the name hashtag because that was actually an existing name we had for our seven-a-side team, like actual team we played in London. You get like your joke names, like in seven-a-side leagues. We called it hashtag because we all worked in social media, as simple as that. But what I wanted to do is make sure the team, because one thing I will say is like there's a lot of stuff that's happened along the way which has been just good timing, right place, right time. But when we formed hashtag, it was always with a view for it to be a business that ultimately could employ me and my brother if and when YouTube went away.
Even when you started, it was
from before we even played a game. We were like, right, this needs to become something that we can grow bigger than me as a YouTube channel or whatever. And it's just, you got to remember 2015 as well. No one knew how long YouTube stuff was going to last. It's not like now where everyone's like, yeah, everyone wants to be a YouTuber. This was still something you can only just start earning money from.
Some vision to have then.
Yeah, well, it wasn't like, we didn't know exactly what that would look like, but we were like, you know, a lot of people had started to make businesses, or we could see a world where you could just fade away as a YouTuber if you didn't do something like that. So we were like, okay, let's find something we're passionate about that we would happily work for as a business if we couldn't make content anymore, or if you know, no one wanted to watch me do what I was doing, I'll make a story around something bigger, which is why we didn't call it Spencer FC or whatever, which was my YouTube channel name. We wanted to give it its own name. So yeah, that was 2016. Started off and then the Wembley Cup got bigger and bigger simultaneously as well. We had 34,000 people at Wembley for the second one.
That's incredible.
We had like, you know, Steven Gerrard played in it, you know, Patrick Kluivert, JJ Okocha, loads of other people. But hashtag had been born as well. And it was originally just literally me and my brother and our mates. There was no one in there you'd have heard of, like apart from myself, if you followed my YouTube channel. The best footballer in the team was probably one of my brother's mates who maybe could play like, you know, 10th or 9th tier, you know, like semi-pro, like not even the level we're at now. And then there's a lot of people that didn't even get in their school teams, like, and they weren't good footballers, but we were just mates. And it wasn't supposed to be elite, it was supposed to be fun. Second game we ever played was at Wembley, as hashtag.
That's incredible.
Within a few months, we went to America on a tour, played 4 games, 2 in Atlanta, 2 in New York. We signed the first kit deal with a YouTube team with Umbro, bespoke shirts that we designed with Umbro. And all these first happened. Then we started signing a few YouTubers. You've had Theo Baker on here. He was our first marquee signing, who's a decent player, again, semi-pro standard player, but also had a YouTube following. So we were like, this is perfect for us. Got him in.
Mold, yeah.
Yeah, he does. And it was great. And then we got a lad called Charlie Morley in as well. And it all sort of snowballed. We did it for 2 years. Then I was trying to look ahead again. And I was like, right, we're all getting a bit older. I was approaching 30. My brother's mates were approaching mid-30s. A lot of them were having kids. We were playing maybe 2 games a month, no training or anything. So it was sustainable in that setup. Even with some of the lads were living in like Northampton, coming from all over the shop, like it wasn't necessarily local. But I was like, no one's going to want to watch us do this forever.
Yeah,
when we were mid-30s and we're like getting slower and we're not winning as much. Because we were like a decent side for the games we played. You know what I mean? For the opponents we went up against. So this is the hard bit, I'd say, is like we had to almost like choose to stop something that was working, if you know what I mean. Like I took all the content off my channel and I wanted to create a new channel from scratch because I felt that as long as it's on this channel called Spencer FC, it's going to be look as a Spencer thing, whereas I wanted it to be a football club and a brand in its own right. So the day we did that, we went from having games that were getting millions of views per game to 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 views, which is still amazing, but we chose to make that drop because of the bigger picture.
Yep.
And then we were like, well, if we want this club to be around for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, forever, what is it? It's great what we've done so far, this sort of exhibition game thing, but it's not a thing that goes forever. So we managed to get into the pyramid, the non-league pyramid. Again, this is probably the best example of good timing, right place, right time. There was a restructure happening in the area I live in, which is Essex, where they didn't have a Step 6 league. They just didn't have one. It went from Step 7 to Step 5. So they were making one. And we had the conversation with the right people. And it basically meant we could go into that league without taking anyone's spot, because that's already going to be negative publicity if you take someone else's spot that could have had it. You know, you relegate a team in order to put you in a league, right? So we had an opportunity to beat that issue. And we could go in as ourselves. We didn't have to take over another club. So it was kind of a dream, too good to pass up. And that was when we entered non-league.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that was 2018. And then we won our first season, men's season, even though we didn't win any of our first 4 games.
All of you and your mates still playing? It
started off like that. Well, not all. I didn't make that transition. I'm aware enough of my limitations, and I want to win too much to risk losing if it means I play. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather just win. So I'd always been the manager of the team up to that point as well. So we got a manager in, and this is one of the big like misnomers with us hashtag as well, is like people don't realise how much I was brought up in non-league. Like my dad's been a physio at non-league level all my life, so I've been like in dugouts and changing rooms and stuff all my life, like as a kid. So this wasn't a case of some YouTubers coming into non-league. Yeah, we got a funny name in that, but we went and got the assistant manager from East Thurrock, who was assistant manager in National League South at the time. My dad knew very well, I knew very well on a personal basis. He dropped 4 divisions to become our manager, brought coaching staff with him, brought players with him. You know, overnight we were a club of people that actually had quite a lot of non-league experience. And so I stepped away from being the manager. I also stepped away from being a player. I carried on playing, but we had like a Sunday team and stuff. And I just
What age were you then as well?
I was 29.
It's incredible
point,
that you've got that vision and you knew at that point how to take it further.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's the thing about, again, another common misconception of hashtag is because we've had good sponsors and stuff, they thought that the reason we'd succeeded quite quickly was like money, but it actually really wasn't. Like genuinely, on my mother's life, right, we came in with zero budget, and that was a choice. We had money. I've never said we haven't had money. We've had great sponsors from day one, but we were saving it for a football ground. We still do. So like we won September with a budget of zero. Not a single player got £1 in expenses that year. Okay,
were you not still working in? When did you give up the social media gig?
That was years before. Yeah, that was 2013, 2014. So I'd already been sort of a full-time YouTuber for a few years. But yeah, we were able to attract players. That's one thing we definitely had in our corner. People would probably play for us in that level. They maybe wouldn't have played for another team in that level because of the exposure. But no one got a penny in expenses that year, and there were teams that were going against us in the league that had a bigger budget. So we outperformed, on paper. No one will give us credit for it, but I'm not asking for it. But the reality is we didn't make it easy for ourselves. We didn't win any of our first 4 games because we used all the boys from the original hashtag team that wanted to make the transition. We said, yeah, you can, if you're good enough, like we'll keep you in. And obviously some of them weren't, and some of them couldn't commit to the travel, and it just sort of naturally evolved. And then we got quite decent, but we still played. I mean, we had the guy called Jacko, who's a goalkeeper, he's a Sacco goalkeeper and stuff for a long time. He'd played semi-pro. He'd retired at like 39, 40 from a 20-year career in non-league. Come and played for us. We got him to go back into it.
No way.
He carried on playing to his 43. He came back from a leg break. He did at 41. He came back from that and played for us for 3 seasons in non-league. We've had other players that have made. So there's 3 or 4 boys that made the transition from the very first YouTube games all the way through, up divisions as well as we got promoted. But we obviously had to bring new people in as well. And yeah, we won our first league. Second and third season were both COVID years, but they got amalgamated and we got promoted as a result of them points per game because we were the best team statistically in those 2 years. So we kind of back-to-back promotions. We couldn't have done it quicker. And then we had our first season at the 8th tier, step 4 of non-league last year. We finished 8th. Again, carried a lot of the boys through that had played in that first season. Didn't just constantly get new players in, because when you're telling a story on YouTube, you've got to
show loyalty as well. Yeah,
there's 15 new lads. Who are they? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we actually started pretty poorly again in the league, slowly improved, ended up just missing out in the playoffs. And now this year we're very much going for promotion. We've since added a women's team who are the best in the county in the 4th tier, top of the 4th tier of women's football right now, and a youth team, 50 teams, 600 players. And it's crazy now. You go to our site in Essex on the Sunday and you see literally 10 football pitches with yellow and blue shirts on, all with a hashtag badge on, kids from 5 to 18. And you're like, how the hell has this happened from me and my mates?
It's incredible growth, obviously, to say that. And then obviously you've got all-inclusive teams as well. I've seen, obviously, you're walking football. And you're opening that market to everybody now. Obviously, being such a new club and building a reputation, to have established yourself in all of those fields, it's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've got to give a lot of credit for the women's side and the youth side. They were existing clubs that we merged with, so they weren't started from scratch. That was more a case of a mutually beneficial situation. So, good example, the youth team we merged with was a team called Forest Glade. I'd played against them as a kid. They're very well known in the area. 30 years they've been going, but because they weren't affiliated to a team in the men's national league setup, they couldn't play in the better leagues. In our area, it's called the EJA leagues. So that meant they'd lose their best players. They'd lose their best players to local EJA teams. And so we had something they needed, which was an opportunity to keep hold of better players. They had something that we needed, which was an overnight youth setup, which not is just great to have that, but also it builds the family of the club out there, come to games. We give them all season tickets for free to come to the senior games and stuff. So it created a family thing overnight. And to the point where Derek Pearson, who formed that youth team, Forest Glade, 30 years ago, he's now the co-chairman of the entire club with me. Wow. So he's, we do it together. And the women the same. The women had been going really well for a number of years. They'd got up to the 3rd tier, which is the tier below the championship. Their chairman stepped away and they were actually going to go bankrupt. They had the guys who are still at the club now running it, putting their own money in. The women were all paying to play, which is unfortunately quite common at that level still. Yep. So I literally just did a tweet. I'd watched the 2019 Women's World Cup, and I was a bit inspired by it, and I could see the growth. And I just did a tweet and said, look, I want us to get into women's football. Is there anyone that needs help in the local area? Because I'll always look at it as like, if we're going to do something, let's solve a problem that exists rather than just start a new team. There's probably people that need help. Let's help them do better at what they're already doing and help ourselves in the same breath. And then like loads of tweets back, but these guys were literally down the road, best team in the county still, even though they'd had a really tough year at a third tier and got relegated because the chairman pulled the money away. And they were like, yeah, we had a meeting with them and it was just a no-brainer. And then unbelievable. With first team, 2 years in a row, the first team in the National League to hit 50 goals. We actually hit 60 this weekend. We just won 16-0 on the weekend.
I saw that.
They've hit double figures 5 times this season. They've beaten a full-time Ipswich team who were top of the third tier. We beat them in the League Cup. We're obviously not full-time. And we're now in the FA Cup, 4th round against Coventry, who are the bottom of the Championship. We're top of the 4th tier. We've got a chance in that game. It's basically top of League 2 playing bottom of the Championship in terms of level. And if you're a top of League 2 playing a team in the bottom of the Championship who hadn't won a game, you'd fancy yourself.
Of course, especially in a cup game.
Yeah, exactly.
A one-off game that anything can happen.
And if we win that, we could play a Women's Super League team. We could play an Arsenal, a City, a Chelsea.
Well, I see the women are starting to build a bit of a presence on the YouTube as well. Is it with Alex?
Yeah, Alex Bayliss. That's another great story. She was the club captain when we took over. She literally that summer had one of the heart screenings and was told she had to retire because her cousin had sadly died playing football. So her whole family did the screening, and she was told, you can't play football again. So literally, she'd come in as club captain, all this exciting stuff happened around the club, and was told, no, you can never play. But we were like, how can we keep you involved? And so she's become like the vlogger of the women's team, and she's now got her own audience in women's football in general, not just hashtag. She goes to all the big Euros games. She does stuff with the England team. So that's a really good example of how I think hashtag can offer other routes. You know, we've hired people that used to play for us that maybe didn't make the step up, or actually were more valuable to us in another way because their skill set as editors or cameramen. So I think like 3 different employees that work for hashtag have played for hashtag first, and then we've hired them. You know, so we always, it's more than just playing on the pitch. If we can keep people about, it's very rewarding from my perspective.
Right, normally we have generic goalie chat, right? But I want to actually obviously talk about your footballing career in general.
I don't know if you use the word career.
Well, from your, we have a lot of a younger audience as well. So like your first introduction to football, obviously like you've talked about your brother and stuff like that, but was it because of your brother playing football that you was like, I want to get into it?
You know what? It was actually the opposite. It always surprises people. I didn't actually start playing football till I was 13. So quite late, which I use as an excuse as to why I'm not better. I think what actually happened, I'm a middle child, and I think my brother, who's a better footballer than me and played at a decent level, I was rebelling against that. So he was like, he's a football lad, so I'm not going to be football. So I didn't actually start playing football. It actually was games, computer games that got me into it. It was sitting and playing FIFA and Football Manager or Championship Manager with my brother Seb that made me go, I have to try and play this. It looks quite fun. And I just become an addict like overnight. From 13 onwards. So my first team is all local teams to me that aren't particularly well known, but a team called Brentwood Boys and then Hartswood Stars. And then we moved and I went and played for Heybridge Swifts. Have you heard of them? So they're in the same level that the same level that our men's team are now. So I ended up playing for their youth team for a couple of years. And then at 16, a lot of teams disbanded at 16. And we actually formed our own team, me and my dad. And got all my it's basically hashtag, not called hashtags. All the boys that ended up playing for hashtag 10 years later were in that team, and we did that for 2 years. Won a couple of cups. We had an all right side, and then I went to uni. Played at uni at Reading. Played in the third 11 again, so it gives you an idea. Like not first 11 player. We had 5'11", so I was somewhere in the middle.
What position are you as well?
In those days, I was playing fullback. I was a centre half growing up because I was quite tall for my age, and then everyone else caught up. So then I moved to fullback. Did a little bit in centre mid. I'm like, because I always say my brother's better than me as well. I'm basically the Phil Neville to his Gary Neville. He's a bit better at football, but I'm more versatile.
Typical middle child as well. But everyone undersells you as a middle child. They just expect you to crack on. Yeah,
exactly. I was the guy that would play in any position because I wanted to play, and I was never the best player in the team. So great work rate. Great. I was always very fit because I had to be, because I would work so hard to have any advantage because I was catching everyone up on the actual technical side of the game. Ended up, and then when hashtag started, I'd been a left back for a while, a right-footed left back.
You are Phil Neville.
Just literally squeezing in anywhere they'd have me. And then nowadays I've actually started playing vets football now, and I love that because it's like fastest player on the pitch for the first time ever. And I get to run around loads. But yeah, I mean, the highlights of my football career, if you can call it that, are all YouTube related. 5 times I played at Wembley.
It's incredible. That's more than me.
Yeah, it's bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah, it's bonkers.
3 of them in front of decent crowds, 20,000 or more. I played in one of the final ever. I played twice at West Ham Old Ground, including one of the final games I ever played there in the England-Germany 50-year, whatever it was, 60-year World Cup reunion match. I played with like Rio Ferdinand, Mark Noble. Like I played in that team on that pitch in front of 20,000 people.
Incredible.
Imagine that as a West Ham fan. Against quite big German names as well. Like I did a slide tackle on Oliver Neuville. And Wembley, yeah, I've been nutmegged by JJ Okocha. It was an absolute honour.
That would be like something. I tell my kids that.
Exactly. The best bit about that is I thought I tackled him. I thought I tackled him. The crowd cheered, and I was like, yes. And I looked down, the ball's not there, and I realised he's run away with the ball, and I was like,
oh wow.
Damn. I had Opta did one of the Wembley Cups. They did all the stats of the game, and I had 1 successful tackle in the game, and it was on Stevie G. I'll take that. Yeah. So these are all things I'm really holding on to. Yeah, loads of little, and then I've literally, the stadiums I've got to play at is a joke. Like I've played in a lot of the Sidemen games. So I played at Southampton, for example. Played at Anfield. I've played at the Emirates twice. I've played the day after the Champions League final on the Atletico Madrid stadium. Like, and when you get to play the day after as well, the pitch is like top notch as it can be. Like the first Wembley Cup was the day after the FA Cup final, so the pitch was a joke. The Champions League, the day after, it was a joke. I've done stuff like that, and it's just, I got to tell you, it never gets old. Like, as you'll know this, but like there are some people in this space, I'd never name names, but they sort of make content and they look at it more of a business angle, and you'll say to them like, oh, got an opportunity to play at Wembley, and they'll be like, how much am I getting paid? And you'll be like,
that's incredible.
I will
That's
pay
the wrong way
you,
of
still
thinking.
now, after playing 5 times, I would pay a lot of money to play at Wembley the 6th time. Do you know what I mean?
I've been a professional footballer for 18 years, and some of those pitches that you've said that you've played on, obviously Wembley and that, but Atletico Madrid, I've not done any of that.
No, I know.
And I'm sat here in awe going, wow.
We're very fortunate, and we're very aware of that as well. Like, the first year of non-league, we ended up playing an exhibition match at Old Trafford at the end of the season. And we're taking lads. At this point, we had non-league players for the first time. We've got lads who've been journeymen in non-league, who've won things at like the 8th or 9th or 7th tier, but never got anywhere near somewhere like Old Trafford, right? And you know what was amazing was, it was really interesting for me that moment, because we had lads still in the team who'd been with us for 3 or 4 years. So they'd played in other countries. They played in like 7 countries. They played, in big stadiums with crowds. These lads who'd come in now more recently were better footballers, played at a higher level, but never played anything like this. The gratitude they showed for that, not throwing anyone else under the bus, but there was boys in our team that had got used to it very quickly. And I was like, lads, look at what these boys are, how grateful they are. This is what we get to do. Is we're very lucky, and you have to always remember that.
What's the nerves like for them players?
Because
it's a new experience.
Yeah, and you know what the thing is as well is like, the opponents are usually very well matched as well. So it's not like if you're in the FA Cup and you're going against United at Old Trafford and you think there's a chance you might get battered. That we've almost never been in that situation. I'm sure one day we will. But we always had good games there as well, which I think made it all the more... Like when we played at Wembley, the second Wembley Cup, and I had literally my mates from uni and school playing with me there, because Hashtag played in the game at the Wembley Cup. 34,000 people there. And I've got like mates of mine, like Ryan Adams, who's still got our most appearances ever, like scored a really good goal at Wembley. We won the game in front, and he had 30,000 people cheering. Like, it's one thing getting to play there, and then you add the crowd, and then you win the game, and then you score a goal in it. Like, I never got to score in one of those games, but we did have a penalty in one game, and I was the captain, and I chose to let my brother take it. Because 1, he's a better penalty taker, and I wanted to win first and foremost. But 2, I was like, I can always be the guy that gave my brother the penalty rather than taking it and maybe missing it.
He owes you some good Christmas presents for the rest of his life.
To be fair, he's looked after me, so I can't complain. But he, like that moment, he scores the Wembley Cup penalty. He does a little golf celebration with me in the corner. Like that's probably, if you ask me 1 second, like minuscule moment of everything, it's probably that exact moment. Because all the like, accolades or whatever you want to call them is great. YouTube subscribers are great, but literally taking the 2 boys that played in the garden together and pretended to be playing at Wembley to actually do it and score and celebrate together with a crowd, you literally cannot make that up. Like it's not
incredible.
It's not something you can do unless you're an elite footballer, and we aren't, and we managed to do it anyway.
That's amazing. Obviously, you're talking about your brother then. Obviously, Seb on golf. How did his switch go to golf and obviously you football? Like that focus of, obviously he's smashing it as well. but you've obviously got a good relationship.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty typical brother relationship, I would say. Like, we didn't get on a lot as kids. We used to fight a lot. And then I think because he'd done so much football at a young age and I hadn't, I sort of overtook him in football passion quite quickly. He still loves his football, but then he took up golf and that became his new thing because he was like 10, 15 years into, he'd been in academies and all this sort of thing. And he was probably he had bad knee injury as a kid as well. And I think he just sort of was a bit jaded. So he fell in love with golf. And it's funny because I'm getting to the age now where most of my friends are doing that same transition, right? So what used to be all my mates, I might have not seen someone since school for like 10 years. They're like, mate, I've been following you on YouTube. It's amazing what you're doing. Now they always say, oh, what's your brother's video? Because they love golf. And I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, he's a very, very good golfer. Like, I've often compared my football journey to his golf journey in the sense of neither of us have been professional, but we've got to do, you know, the next best thing. But Seb actually is like borderline professional golf player, whereas I'm nowhere near a borderline professional footballer. So he kind of deserves to do that stuff a bit more than I do. But he had his own career in his own right, you know, very successful businessman. He had a couple of different businesses. He'd just been my sort of confidant when I needed advice in the early YouTube days and someone I trusted, obviously. And then I got to a point around that first Wembley Cup where stuff was getting really busy. I needed help. And I just trusted him so much more than a traditional like agent. I never had one before. So I just sort of said, do you want to come and work on that? Which he did, and that's been going for 8 years. But he's obviously got his own company in there with his own right. People like he works with like Thogden and Theo Baker, who you've had here. So it's not just hashtag or myself that he works with, and he's doing really well. So, I mean, that's a common thread throughout anyone I've ever worked with or like employed. Is I've usually always gone with people that can I swear on here or not? Okay, so I'd rather have someone that gives a shit and doesn't know what they need to do yet, and they can learn that on the job, than people who talk a good game but don't actually care. And so I've employed a lot of people with no experience over the years who've just learned that bit, but I know they care because they played for the club, for example. So I know they actually want us to do well. And then my brother was very experienced in a career, but he'd never worked in this industry, but it didn't take him 5 minutes to figure it all out.
What a save from Mark Howard.
Right, I'm going to test your knowledge about goalkeeping.
Okay,
anyway.
We'll see. Go on then.
Right, I've got a quiz called Goalie or No Goalie that we're currently running. I've got 10 names written down. 5 are actual international goalkeepers.
Right.
5 are just made up names or celebrities that you might have heard of.
Okay.
It is set up to try and trick you as much as
fine.
possible. Right, so it's 1 point for each correct
What about
answer.
our current leaders? The second.
Yeah, 7 points is the top at the moment.
Yeah, and that is
Josh Griffiths. And then we've got, I can't think of who's second. Lonergan's is in 6. Yeah, with 6, right? So they are meant to trick you, but some of them you will have heard of.
Yeah.
Some of them are trick names. So.
All right.
Right, so we'll crack on. Right, number 1, Vasilias Barkas.
You just sound like Football Manager regens, don't they? Like someone's come for the
This is the whole point of it.
Vasilias Barkas. I'm going to go real goalkeeper.
He is a real goalie. He's former Celtic goalkeeper, plays for Greece and Utrecht.
Of course.
Yeah, so some of them you will have heard of.
Yeah, that's not one of them.
Right, number 2, Tyrone Lindo.
That's fake. You've made that name up.
It's not a fake name.
Okay, but
but
it's not a goalkeeper.
It's not a goalkeeper.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Big Nasty.
Oh, is that his real name? I've worked
Nasty.
with him a number of times. I had no idea that was his name, though.
Yeah. Tyrone
I thought you
Lindo.
made that name up. He'd probably be a good keeper as well.
That's a typical goalie stereotype going on right there. I'm fully against it. Right, number 3, Paul Hawkins.
Goalkeeper.
He is not a goalkeeper. He invented Hawkeye that's used for goal line technology.
I rate that. But was he a goalkeeper in his youth?
No, he's never been an international goalkeeper. Fact check me on that.
Okay. I've got to have been an international goalkeeper specifically.
International goalkeeper, yeah, just to make it a bit more specific. It's too hard if I'd have just chucked in goalkeepers from any level of every country.
Ridiculous.
Right, number 4, Marvin Phillips.
Now, that name rings a bell, but I feel like it was like Marlon Phillips. Is that someone? Is that a goalkeeper? Marvin?
I'm not sure, mate.
Marvin Phillips.
I'm not allowed to allude to any clues or anything.
Marvin Phillips. I'm going to say no.
He is a goalie, Trinidad goalkeeper.
Damn.
Trinidad and Tobago goalie. Right, 2 out of 4 so far. You're going all right.
I'm dropping.
No, you're going all right. It started well. Right, number 5, Sergio Costa.
It sounds just like a Portuguese goalkeeper from at some point, doesn't it? There's got to be a chance. Sergio Costa.
Current goalkeepers, by the way.
Current goalkeepers, okay.
Current international goalkeepers.
Fine. Well, I don't think he's a current Portuguese goalkeeper. There is a Costa in there right now, isn't there? Who was the lad that started for them in the World Cup? Was that Costa?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not Sergio, is it? It's not Sergio, is it? Is it? I don't think it is. I'll be having a stinker if it is him, but I've sort of alluded to. I half know it, so I'm going to say it's not his name.
He's not a real goalie.
Yes, come on.
He's actually the inventor of Costa Coffee.
Oh, there you go. Lots of inventors in there.
Yeah. So honestly, I am out to try and trick you.
Yeah.
You're doing well. 3 out of 5. It's a good start. Right. Number 6, Alvaro Montero.
Alvaro Montero. So you got Alvaro Morata, who's obviously not a goalkeeper. Have you? But you haven't made up any of these names.
No.
So they're all real people.
They're all real people. Obviously, you might have heard of some of them. You might not have heard of any.
Not a single one so far. Alvaro Montero, I'm going to say he's a keeper.
He is a
Come
goalie.
on!
Colombia goalkeeper, Millonarios.
It's pure guesswork.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's working for you. Sounds like it should be a goalie.
Yeah.
Right. Number 7, Jaiki Han.
Jaiki Han. Goalkeeper.
He is a goalie. On fire here.
And then
China and Guangzhou.
got good goal kicks.
He's the one. He actually does launch it a mile.
I knew that.
He actually does. That's mad. Man.
Have you seen the Iranian goalkeeper with the long throw? You know, the guy who got injured against England? That throw's a joke.
It's a joke. You've seen David Ospina? Obviously, he's playing for Ronaldo's team at the moment. He just set up a goal at the weekend and he's kicked it from his 6-yard box onto their 18-yard box. Geezer just takes the touch and scores. You're like, it's the simplest
He could do that to Ronaldo every week, couldn't
Yeah,
he?
exactly. Especially with his leap. He'll win everything.
Yeah.
Right. Number 8, Thomas Mapother.
Not a keeper.
He is not a keeper. I've got here, your mission if you choose to accept it. It goes by the name of Tom Cruise's real name.
Is it?
Thomas Cruise Mapother.
Wow. Fair play.
You're on 5. What's this? You're on 5 now then? 5 out of 8? Is that correct? Yep. Number 9, Mark Poss.
You got Mark Poom. Mark Poss. No.
He is not a goalkeeper. Creator of Dutch
Fine.
TV programme, De Verraders, which we know as The Traitors.
I watched that.
My favourite programme at the
Watched
moment. No spoilers, please.
Okay. No, I won't. Have you ever heard of the game Among Us?
So we play Wolf.
Right.
There's a card game that you play called Wolf, and it's just like
Same.
Among Us and Traitors.
Yeah.
So we actually, on away trips now, take a pack of these cards called Wolf, and 20 of us will sit in our room after dinner and we play Wolf for hours.
That's decent.
Till the staff come in and say, look, you've got to get out. It's so good.
Yeah. How far in are you on that?
I'm 7 episodes in.
How funny is like how emotional they get? Like they literally go from like this to crying their eyes out in like 10 seconds. I mean, I'm sure it's a very pressured environment.
See, when you're sat around a table and you're trying to tell people you're innocent, the more that you portray yourself as innocent, you're like, yeah, you're giving something away.
You can't win though, can you? Because if you
Cannot
don't, they go,
win.
you haven't even tried to explain it, and you're like, oh, come on. Yeah.
Right. Number 10, Oliver Sale.
Goalkeeper.
He is a goalie, New Zealand and Wellington goalie.
I've got like 5 or 6 in a row there. By the way.
I think you have. I think you might be on 8 there.
I think I might be the new record holder of this whole game, and I didn't know a single one. I'll take it. I'm very happy with that. There's absolutely no skill involved in that whatsoever. I guessed every single time.
I've had other goalkeepers on that have had absolutely no clue as well. It's luck of the draw, really.
That's tough.
Right. Before we talk a bit more, right? Have you ever played in goal yourself?
Couple times, like not deliberately, but it'll be when I'm like filling in for someone or whatever. But I'll be the guy if we're missing a keeper at a game, I'll be the guy to volunteer usually. But I'm not particularly good. There was a little brief period. I think every kid, when you play football as a kid, you have a little spell in the garden. You're like, I could be a world-class goalkeeper.
Making that camera save, there's no better feeling,
like
is there?
A 10-minute period where I'm like, I think I should put all my energy into being a goalkeeper. And then someone will do a shot, you just let it in. You're like, no, it's not me. But yeah, no, that probably like 11-a-side, I probably played like 3 times in goal, you know. I don't think I've ever kept a clean sheet. I think I did once actually when I came in halfway through a game. It's tough though, mate. It's a different sport though, isn't it? It's what they always say. It's a different sport. Like it's a completely different skill set you have to have. I don't envy goalkeepers, but they're so important, obviously.
Well, like, I always call us an individual in a team sport.
Yeah.
Like we are so different. We actually play in a different sport, really, because we're the only ones using our hands. But yeah, it's such a different mindset as well. Like we all like our own headspace. We like to work on our own for 90 minutes of a game.
Yeah.
Like although we're involved in a game, we're like just concentrating on your own job.
But you can't hide as a goalkeeper. Like there's a lot of positions on the pitch. Like you can make an error in the lead. An outfield player can make an error in the lead up to a goal, and then he could sort of have a coping mechanism where he'll blame the fullback after that for doing something, or him for doing something wrong. and there's a load of people that can almost share the blame, but a keeper you just can't hide. And sometimes it's an error that's a genuine error. Sometimes it's not really one you can avoid, but the criticism still comes to you. So you have such thick skin.
Even down to taking a goal kick. If I kick a goal kick out of play, everyone they jeer you.
Yeah.
But see if an outfielder passes one out of play looking for another player, nothing said. It's that's unlucky.
And you've got the fans right behind you as well. Like when it's the Oppo fans, that's just
That's part of the fun bit,
Have you ever played non-league or not?
No. Well, obviously now I'm playing for Wrexham in the National League.
I don't count that as non-league really because everyone's professional in that league already, aren't they? But the reason I ask is because I think non-league is harsh because you can hear the individual words they're saying to you. Someone could be really mean, whereas the rest of it can just get lost in the crowd noise.
100%.
You can hear someone. It's funny. Sometimes it's funny if the banter is just sort of silly, but when it's actually scarily accurate or actually quite something that you might criticise yourself about, and they say it, I just think that'd be so hard to not react.
I think that would live in my brain rent free. If someone knew something personally about me, about my own life, I'd be like, oh my god, what? Who's that?
I know. You can do it. You can stand. I'm not encouraging it, but you can stand behind an opposition goalkeeper and just talk to him the whole game. And the distance could literally be the distance between me and you right now, because these aren't big stadiums necessarily. You got a goal, a little barrier, and a man here just saying horrible things for 90 minutes that you hear every minute of, every sentence of. And I think non-league goalkeeping is super hard.
Oh, it must be. I've heard some horrific stories about fans throwing piss on them.
Yeah, that happened recently.
Yeah,
It was a few weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. Stuff like that. It's just horrendous.
Well, no, it was a guy. Didn't he piss in his water bottle?
That was it. Yeah.
Happened.
So a fan jumped on the pitch, nicked the water bottle, took it back, pissed in it, and then the goalie obviously drank it, and then started an argument with the fan and got banned. The goalie got banned for it.
He got sent off. It's an absolute joke. But there's so many things little idiosyncrasies in non-league that you can't plan for, and when they happen, I guess the referee has to send him off because he's started on a fan ultimately. But it's if you had the context of what has just happened, you should be allowed to.
You and Stephen Trice must have been approaching that line when you were doing the old commentary.
That was brilliant. I mean, he's very, very funny, Stephen. Some of that he'd written in advance, but a lot of it he was coming up with on the spot. And people thought that I wasn't finding it funny, but it's not. I've used those lip mics a lot because I commentate the hashtag game, so I know when I'm not talking to pull it away. I was cracking up. You just couldn't hear me because I'm pulling the lip mic away because I'm a professional. But if I'd had that there, it wouldn't have been good to listen to, me just laughing the whole time. But yeah, it was very funny. That game in general was bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. What was it? Over £1 million raised. I can't remember. What did we have watching live at one point? It was something crazy numbers we had watching live. Everything they touch turns to gold. I was lucky enough to get to work with the Sidemen with the Wembley Cups and stuff. An early point in both our sort of trajectories, but what they've done since is amazing. I mean, they've got their vodka, they've got their sides food business, they've got so many different things now. Obviously, JJ's got his prime drink as well. That
even in the
amazing.
boxing world and
boxing,
2.6 million, by the way.
2.6 live. There've been World Cup games that didn't get that. It's madness. It's madness. But yeah, those games are so. Having played in those games as well, those games are so fun to play in because.
Is it just full of banter?
It is. That's the genius of it. And that's actually something that we struggled with towards the end of the Wembley Cup because the Wembley Cup was a little bit more competitive and it got better and better as we went on. So to the point where Scott Pollock, who played for us, who ended up going to play for Northampton and playing pro, he was 16 when he played in the Wembley Cup and he got man of the match. He got 3 assists against the team that had Steven Gerrard on it. They were going head-to-head in the middle. So we were bringing players to that game no one had necessarily heard of that could mix it with a 1-year retired Steven Gerrard, right? Which you'd never put those Steven Gerrard in the Sidemen game because it would ruin the vibe. Because you've got people like Chunks scoring worldies, and Chunks is actually way better than people think he is, by the way, having played with him quite a few times. But that's the brilliance of their game, and that's the bit they've got right and kept right, and we went a bit more competitive with it. But yeah, the reason they're fun to play in is if you've got anything about you as a footballer, it's quite fun because you can do quite well.
You can actually take the mickey a little bit. Obviously, Chunks has got good feet and he's always just trying to do skills and hit bangers, isn't he?
Yeah, well, that goal Philly scored in that game was outrageous. I mean, Simon Miniminta he's got I don't know what you call it. You might have a word for it, but that thing, that sort of X factor or whatever, where because you can take a look at the opposition, the goalkeepers, whatever. But on more than one occasion now. In last second of a game, and he's scored a 40-yarder goal, which any footballer could mess up. Do you know what I mean? And he's got that thing in his head, which pressure. My brother's got it as well with golf. He won something called the Trilby Tour, which is the biggest amateur golf competitions on Sky. He's the first person to ever win it twice. and he had to sink like a 40-yard putt to win it, and he just did. And I said, I was filming it at the time because we had a YouTube video. I said he's gonna put this in. So I've grown up with this guy, and when it has to be done, he does it every time.
Focus in that final moment.
Exactly why I put him on the penalty as well at Wembley Cup. So that he won't miss. I know that's in. And Simon's got that as well, that gift. He's a very good player, Simon, as well. Yeah. And you got the Toby and his brothers as well. Training with Crawley Town. Yeah. Like there's players there. There's real players there.
It shows that crossover though now that obviously like training with Crawley Town and that football clubs are actually trying to welcome it into their environment and to bring on that sort of sponsorship and crack into those realms. Obviously, I'm at Wrexham. We're sponsored by TikTok. We've got two of the biggest owners, most famous owners in the world at the moment. Yeah. There's a lot of similarities between, I've heard you say it before, between Wrexham, us being one of the oldest football clubs in the world, in England, with the third oldest, I think we're the oldest Welsh club.
Yeah, and you've got the oldest international ground,
stadium.
Yeah.
But you're obviously the newest, but you're trying to get into that sort of heritage, and we're going into your world almost.
Yeah, and that's what's amazing about it. And then you've got Crawley as well, who have used taglines like the internet's local club, which is a tagline that we've used previously in the past as well. So there's a number of teams trying to do the same thing, but in a different way, And I'm a massive It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia fan, by the way. So I was really happy to see Rob get involved in the football team. I've listened to all their podcasts. I've watched every episode about 5 times. I love that show. So I'm a big Rob McElhenney fan, and Ryan Reynolds as well. So, but yeah, I mean, it's the opposite way of doing it in terms of, I always say we've reverse engineered a club. So we've created like the most difficult bit of the club, which is like a sort of worldwide fan base and sponsorships and all that. But we haven't done the bit you have to do as well, which is the local community, because you're never going to have a big home attendance without that. You're never going to be sustainable in football terms without that local fan base, whereas we're sustainable at the moment, but it's through YouTube terms. You know what I mean? It's a different model. Obviously, Wrexham have that, and I think what's great about what's happening at Wrexham is it's brought that community really back out.
Really
the ones that maybe weren't supporting them as much, but they used to, have come back, and it's just perfect because it's what Wrexham deserves as a place. And I think watching the documentary, what I pick up on it is just how clued up, even with Rob and Ryan probably not being, definitely not being sort of soccer experts, football experts coming into it, they've got the right people around them because they have done everything right in the way they've approached the community and the way they've improved the ground and all the things that you can't. I always say to people that are trying to do things a bit differently, because there's a lot of people in the space doing it. It's like the non-negotiable bit is you can't make the team worse. Like if you come in, doesn't matter how good your ideas are, if they were fitting 10th in the league and now you've got them in a relegation battle, no one's going to take what you're doing seriously because you've made them worse. If you are the same, but you're doing things in a better way, you're engaging the community, then they'll like it. More importantly, though, it's a results business. If you're winning and the club are progressing, people will listen to your ideas, and you have to be doing well on the pitch.
What they're brilliant at is the relationships they've got with the fans, but even the players. Like they will text you after every game. Like they're so vested in it.
Yeah, that's great.
Like, and obviously, as players, you're like, oh my god, like it's still a privilege now to get a text message off either of them, and you're like, wow. So like that feeling that you get from that, you're like, oh, I want to do well for them. I want to do better for them, and they're doing that to the whole town, the whole club. It's just been changed to a city now. Yeah. So like they're trying to change that whole environment that surrounds that football club.
No, it's amazing, and I guarantee you that like in their eyes, you guys will be celebrities. You are celebrities. You know what I mean? Like the way you look at them, they all look the same as you. Like because I even at the level we're at, like these guys, the players that play for us, I'm just a fan ultimately of my club. So I worship them if they go and score a great goal on the weekend. Whilst also being the person that sometimes has to make a decision to let players go, you can still think they're unbelievable. And I always say we're a much smaller club than Wrexham, so we're like a family club still. We are, my mum and dad are literally involved in the club. My brothers are involved in the club. But as a non-league club, I think as well, you can be a family vibe. So anyone that plays for us, even if it's just a couple of games, I consider them part of that. And I think that's the same vibe that Ryan and Rob are giving off as well.
Well, even like obviously, at the weekend, we just played Coventry in the FA Cup and we beat them, but it was the most trending thing in North America.
Yeah, so I see that.
Like, how can that be possible that a National League club playing in the UK is trending in North America?
And how can anyone ever have an issue with that as well? No. Do you know what I mean? How can it not be seen as a unilaterally good thing? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Which it is, clearly. But as anyone will find, you can do everything perfect. You can do everything literally the perfect way. Take every step to not piss any local fans off or anything. There'll still be people that don't like you. And that was a big turning point for me in running hashtag when I realised I'm not doing a bad job if people don't like us. You know what I mean? At first I thought, why are people not liking us? And what have I done wrong? And I'd like almost lose sleep over it because I think I know we haven't done anything wrong, but yet people are not happy with us. And you feel really almost like imposter syndrome. Because that is how they want to make you feel if you're doing things differently. They want to make you feel like you don't deserve a seat at the table because it's not the way it's been done. I'm like, I know how most of these non-league clubs work. Trust me, they're just being propped up by a guy with some money, and the minute he leaves, that club's going to drop down the divisions. That's not something we should be celebrating. That's something we should be looking for alternatives to, you know? So that's why I know that we're more than worthy of a seat at the table. We're not trying to change how everyone does it. We're just trying to say this is a way you can do it. And yeah, no one in the history of the world of running football clubs has ever made everyone support them. It can't be done. You know, you're always going to be a minority of football fans support your club. You just need to find your people, be it from a part of the world or be it of a certain mentality, which is kind of what we look for. And that was a big turning point for me when I realised actually it's better for people not to like us than not have an opinion about us because it means that we're doing something right.
Yeah. Obviously, you've got a massive fan base around the world now. It must be so hard to pinpoint the location of the football club now because that will be that ultimately you need to set up a base and have your own stadium eventually. But because your fan base is worldwide, how do you go about finding the right area to settle?
Yeah, I mean, we still will bring more fans to away games. And when I say that, like, we don't travel across the country right now, but let's say we go to Suffolk or Norfolk for a game, because we're only going there once or twice a season. There'll generally be hundreds of people that will come to support hashtag to that game. We could even have more fans than the home team, but they won't come to the home games because they live in Suffolk or Norfolk. We could play a game in Manchester and have the same amount of fans. We could play a game in probably Florida and have the same amount of fans. So it's great, but it also means you need to have that local bit, don't you? So we are starting to do it. I mean, when we moved the ground share obviously, but when we got ground shares closer to where we're from in Essex, that started that ball rolling. And men and women play at different grounds still, which is not something we want, but it's because who our men share with have a women's team, we can't get in there, so they're down the road. Our training facility is in between the two sites. You know, ultimately the ground is going to do this. When we get a ground, that will be the bit where people realise we're a place in the world. But we are, for all intents and purposes, based in a quite small catchment area of Essex now. Like if you drew a line between where our men, women and our training base is, and we've got an office as well, those things are only sort of a 10-minute drive from each other, but we need to get it in one place. But even then, unless we change our name, people will still look at us as nomads that haven't got a place.
Also, the level of competition from other football teams in your area, you're fighting off to try and take their fans ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say probably I don't know of too many fans, and if you're talking about people that come to games, I don't know of too many that have left other clubs to support us. I think mostly we've encouraged new people out to come in, which is again a great thing. A very young audience as well. Like, you know, we've got guys who weren't supporting non-league football, had only had a Premier League team, for example, who are now like every game home and away hashtag, which is I'm very proud of, you know. And a lot of clubs do get it. So we can play this whole like woe is me thing that no one likes us. It's not true. Like a lot of clubs actually really like us. A lot of clubs really appreciate the fans that we bring through their home gates and the fact that we're just putting a light on non-league in general. And like it's one of them where I commentate the games as well, right? So I'm not pretending to be unbiased. It's literally like, can you imagine a chairman of a football club sitting there being happy when another team score? Like, it'd be madness. So I'm commentating, I think, fairly in the sense of if you played against us and we're unbelievable, I'm sitting there saying how good you are at football. I never shy away from that. But I'm buzzing when we score against you.
You still want to win, yeah, of course.
And so if you're on the other side of that, I can see how it annoys people. Let's say we're winning a lot at the moment. So let's say we beat a team 4-0. We're going to be saying a lot of good things about our team, probably less good things about your team, and then that goes out to hundreds of thousands of people, and those same people won't watch you the next week when you go and win your game.
Yep.
So I understand the annoyance of that, but I also flip it on its head and say, you come to our place and beat us 4-0, or I'm going to tell everyone how good you are. Like,
but that's also a natural thing that on Match of the Day, the most boring games are last. It's just that's the way that the entertainment business works, that you're going to be hyped up. I know you will have some bias, but you're going to be more hyped up for the better results and the bigger wins, the better goals, and that just comes with that territory.
Yeah, and people love beating us because they know we can't not put it on YouTube. Do you know what I mean? We never not put a game on.
So we've got that similar situation that we're kind of the cup final team. Everybody wants to play against us because of the publicity around the club, and that's something the club and us as players have to deal with and take into every game that we can't let off. We have to just be relentless in what we do.
100%. We've said the exact same thing, you know, especially at non-league, like the first division we had. There's a million reasons why a player might miss a game. You know, he might be on holiday. Stuff that you wouldn't get away with at professional level. He might have gone on holiday. He might just not fancy it. He might have got stuck at work. He might have an injury, whatever. no one would ever miss a game against hashtag. Every team would have every single player available. And you go and watch them play against other teams and you think, oh, these aren't that special. And they turn up against you and be like, who the hell are these guys? They look so much better than they did last week. Exactly what you're saying. And that's just something, for us, that's only going to go away with time. We haven't even spent more than one season in a division yet. You know what I mean? Because we've always been promoted. So once this is our second season at level we're in now. So once this season's finished, hopefully we go up. If we don't go up, we'll be in our third season at this level. We won't be this unique new thing anymore. So people will stop. I think they'll drop their guard a little bit against us.
They'll stop thinking that it's just got to raise it for you.
Yeah.
That you're adjusting to the level and so forth.
Yeah, we'll have 3, 4, 5 games against them in our history that they would have known. Do you know what I mean? When it's the first time we play against hashtag, it means so. Everyone always hashtags it if they score against us and all this stuff.
Do they do that celebration?
Oh yeah, well, almost every time, pretty much. It's funny.
Right,
but,
can we talk about football kits? Normally we do a glove review where we get the guests to come on and talk about the gloves they wear and stuff. Obviously, being so involved at hashtag and that, you've invented your own kits.
This is Matt Smith, and this is the glove review on the Yours, Mine, Away podcast.
Obviously, we can see the goalkeeper kit behind you. How hands-on are you with all that?
Very, very hands-on. Me and my brother love it. It's just such a fun bit of running a football club, genuinely. And I'm not saying I do think the kit I bought today is probably the most controversial shirt I've ever made, right?
It's one of the best kits I've ever seen.
It was one of our first, it was our first, actually our first and only bespoke goalkeeper kit. Every other goalkeeper kit we've had deals with Umbro, Adidas and Hummel. And every other goalkeeper kit we've had has always been an off-the-shelf thing, which is probably something you find a lot, right? And that's the top tier thing as well. The Germany Adidas goalkeeper shirt would be the same as the Man United goalkeeper shirt. It's very common for whatever reason. I guess they don't sell as much, right?
Or most brands, they'll have 2 different styles of goalkeeper kits.
Yeah.
And then they'll do it in 6 different colours in both. So they'll have 12 kits, and whoever's wearing Adidas that year will get any 2 of the 6.
Yeah, and they won't be bespoke.
No, that's it, yeah.
And this is the only one we've ever done bespoke. And one of the reasons we did that as well was that we actually used it as an outfield shirt as well. So it was our third shirt, and it was our goalkeeper shirt. And we very much based this one on the Jorge Campos famous goalkeeper shirt, one of the most iconic goalkeeper shirts ever. Very garish. And there's the 2 schools of thoughts with goalkeeper shirts, is there? Do you want to be very bright and big so that you put off the attacking player, or do you want to, some people have had grey goalkeeper shirts so you almost can't see the shirt? I prefer the big version personally. I don't know what your stuff is.
Should we just let Owen, do you want to just grab it down and stick it on the table for us, just while the guys are chatting about it?
Yeah, because this will divide opinion, the shirt, I think. I mean, when we announced this shirt, our outfield players loved it because they didn't think they had to wear it.
Yeah.
And then all the goalkeepers were sort of 50-50 on it. And then when we started wearing it as a third shirt, people stopped liking it as much.
Oh, did they? I love it. Obviously, I grew up watching Jorge
But
Campos.
it looks like a keeper shirt, doesn't it?
It does,
It doesn't look the same when you wear it out pitch.
What we're saying about some goalkeeper kits are really bright and garish. They're normally highlighted colours, luminous colours. And that's so that the goalkeeper appears bigger in his goal and it's all the striker can look at. But there is that flip side to that's when a striker looks up, he knows where you are.
Yeah.
And he can then see the gaps past you. So there's a total. It's so.
What do you prefer? Which mentality?
I still traditionally like the emerald green goalkeeper kit. So I'm old school. I grew up watching that sort of a goalkeeper kit. I think it was probably because I grew up loving Van der Sar. He always had a green kit and a black kit. That was kind of what he wore. So I was like, whatever he wanted.
And the green blends in with the grass a little bit.
Yeah, that's a little bit. And then the black obviously does blend in with the fans without the strikers knowing it, but they won't see a goalkeeper coming out. So whether you're further away, their depth perception's just not there if you've got a darker kit on.
Yeah.
But traditionally, I grew up, this was my first ever goalkeeper kit, the Jorge Campos. That's one of the reasons that I became a goalie at 8 years old, is that I was playing outfield, saw this goalkeeper kit. Our goalkeeper left the Sunday League team at the time. And I went, well, if I go in goal, I want that kit. And so I had the green version. They did this in 3. They did a pink top, a green top, and a yellow top. So I had the flip colour of it, where it was all green. I had the full kit, the white Umbro socks that match. Oh, I loved it. And I felt like I couldn't be beaten in it.
There you go. That's why kit design is so important, because it's literally inspiring kids to play football. And for us, this shirt is our first ever bespoke shirts across the board, first ever on YouTube as well. And we announced it all in one big go. And we wanted the goalkeeper shirt particularly to really stand out. We also did something that we've always done with our kits as well, which is we changed the colour of the badge depending on the shirt.
That's not traditional. That's
no, but those rules. And I've got nothing against traditional ways of doing things, but for me, it was like I've been told all these rules of kit design. I was like, but why is this a rule? Like, why can't my away shirt be a different colour every year? Which we do. We never have the same away shirt colour. It's like, but we're traditionally, for example, Arsenal will have traditionally a yellow away shirt. Yeah, but especially if you're talking about selling them, and it's starting to see it a bit more now.
It's
like,
a good shout,
give them a different, because you're asking people. I grew up in the world where you had a shirt for 2 seasons. They wore it for 2 years at least. And it was like better bang for your buck. Now you're asking all these parents to buy a new kit every year. At least give them a reason to change it up. You can't change the home shirt every year, although we sort of do, to be honest. We actually swap our dominant colour every year.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So we're either yellow and blue, or we're blue and yellow, and it completely changes the look of the shirt. So every year our home shirt looks completely different to the one before, and that's along with other bespoke designs that we'll put in the shirt. But yeah, I think there's loads of rules in kit design that could be played with. It's way harder for an Arsenal to be creative because they've had 100 shirts. Do you know what I mean? We're still on our like 4th, 5th shirt or whatever. But I am consistently underwhelmed by like shirts. There's some really great shirts out there, but there's some shirts out there I just think, who is okay in that? Like, who's the person at the club?
But normally it's nothing to do with the actual footballing department. It's nothing to do with the players, nothing to do with the manager. It's all done above and...
Yeah, of course, it's like the marketing team, but... And that's probably the department that I'm like most at home at, I guess. But it's like, I don't understand why they tolerate poor designs. We're talking about teams with thousands and tens of thousands of fans. They're going to buy a lot of shirts. Like, give them something great. So we take it really seriously. And we've worked with designers at Umbro, Adidas, and now Hummel. The same guys that are designing, when it was Adidas, like the Real Madrid shirt and stuff like that. It's the same people.
How far ahead are you designing these shirts for? Obviously, next season you've already done that one.
Yeah, the lead time's crazy. Yeah. The lead time is like... They're pestering you for confirmed designs for next year's kit in like July of the year before. If you miss those deadlines because of the factory things and stuff involved, like you end up... We actually multiple times, not necessarily through fault of our own, but we've multiple times have had the shirt not ready for pre-season, and we've had to wear it the first game of the season instead because the designs... Because it's one of them, like, if we're changing a deal, so it's our first year of a new brand, then you've got to be really quick.
Yep.
But yeah, that's a lovely, lovely part of running a football club, I think, and one of the most fun parts of the year.
Right, before we wrap up, I want to talk FIFA. Obviously, you got into YouTube through FIFA. I've made it quite well known that I never played FIFA. Because I did that as my job anyway, I was always like Call of Duty, I played something else. But obviously, you've got a massive background in FIFA. You've worked with some really high-profile people. Yeah,
and that's how we got... So Azpilicueta owns 4% of Hashtag, the Chelsea captain, and he got involved through FIFA, not through football, which people get surprised about. But he's big into his FIFA. I've always been involved in the esports scene there, and I met him at various events, and he wanted to get involved in the UK esports scene, and he saw us as a club, and he literally said to me, like, can I get involved? And I was like, of course you can. It'd be great to have you. And then obviously the football side was an added benefit, part of it. So, and there's so much crossover there, and the way that young fans are now interacting with football, so much of it's through FIFA. I had my little nephews around for New Year, and all they wanted to do was play FIFA. And they know all this stuff about like PSG players and all this stuff that we would never have known until computer games. Like, I got all my European football knowledge from Football Manager.
Yeah, Football Manager.
So it's like, there's a real purpose to gaming and stuff like that. That again, a little bit like the same, maybe older generation will be critical of us in non-league. The same people that probably wouldn't understand the esports side of what we do. So
because you have got your own esports
side,
we
do. We do. And we've been one of the sort of leading FIFA teams for a long time, competing with Man City, PSG, who are in esports as well, who have way more money than us, obviously, and beaten them multiple times.
You've actually sold some of your esports players in the past.
We've sold one player, yeah. I think we're the first to ever do that. Yeah, first to ever sell a FIFA player. There's been other esports players that have been moved on. And that was on Sky Sports News when it happened and stuff like that. So that was pretty.
Did you get a full ticker tape?
Can't remember if we got a ticker tape, but we definitely got interviewed on there. Amazing, and we talked about it, and it was on a few articles and stuff. There's esports is a massive growth industry in terms of not just FIFA. In fact, FIFA's a little bit behind it from where other games are, like the Fortnites of the world and stuff, and Call of Duty.
Yeah.
But if you just do the sort of basic maths on it, and you look at how many people are playing FIFA and where that could go, and when we made Hashtag, it was 2016, right? So I was like, okay, well, what's a 2016 football club look like? Not one that was made in 1896, right? And the thing we had in our advantage there is we can create. So we actually launched ourselves as a football and esports team, not a football team who has some guys that play FIFA. We do football and esports as an equal playing field. The esports we concentrate on are football related. It's not like we're doing the other games. We're just doing football. But that, for me, is a modern day football club. And that is something that's lost on people as well, I think, is that, Man United were one of the last teams to get on Twitter. There's a reason for that. It's because when you're that big and old and successful, and it's not just a football thing, it's a business thing, it's a political thing, whatever, you'll be the last likely to change because you have so much that can go wrong and so many risks and so many brands. So they're always the last to innovate. So if you're young, you can innovate overnight. And that's why you see teams like Brentford suddenly become so good because they have innovated the way their transfer market policy works and the way they recruit, and Brighton and all these things. And it's just because I read a lot of books on football data and stuff like that. And it's like the least likely to innovate are successful teams, because why would you change? Right, the ones that are always going to be the most innovative are ones that can afford to lose and get it wrong because they're already losing. So it's linking to what I was saying before about teams trying stuff more in social media. Like, if you're top of the league, you don't change anything.
No, of course.
No one changes anything. And it's linked to everything. Like, no footballer wants to be associated with a non-football project if their team's losing every week, because they'll just get tweets going, why are you doing this? You should be doing that. But if you do that and then your team improves as a result, you look like a hero. So it all comes back to results. But for me, all we are is a football club that was created in 2016 instead of in the 1800s. If we'd been around in the 1800s, the thing that me and my mates would have had in common would have probably been we worked in the same, iron factory like Thames Iron Works and West Ham or whatever, Newton Heath, Man United. It weren't even called Man United. We weren't called West Ham. Those things happened later. So anyone that gives us stick for our name now, I say, like, it might be our name forever. It might not be one day. The decision will always be the best for the club. But all we are is a group of mates that were in the same industry that created a team exactly like every other team that's ever existed. But because our industry is modern, because we're not from 150 years ago, you think it's not traditional and all this like history stuff. But we love history, but it's future history as well. And you can't only have clubs that are from 150 years ago. Yeah. So it's linked into everything we do, the kits, everything, esports, innovate, see if we can find other ways to do things. Right,
we're going to do I do a penalty competition on YouTube with every guest, right? I'm not expecting to beat you because of your history in FIFA. Obviously, there's going to be a massive switch over in FIFA as well, with obviously the rights of the name FIFA switching
Yeah, that's
over.
big. That's next year, yeah.
Can you obviously tell a few of the listeners what's going to happen in that?
Well, yeah, so since day one of that game, it's been called FIFA, and that's a right they pay for, right? That they pay the organisation FIFA to be called FIFA. People get confused about that, though. They think that's what gets them the name rights of players. There's actually nothing to do with that. That's FIFA Pro, which is a different organisation. So they'll continue to have that going forward. It's not like when Pro Evo didn't used to have the rights and they play Roberto Larcos or whatever. Yeah. FIFA won't go down that route. They'll still have the proper names. But they're ending that relationship, and we don't know what that's going to mean for FIFA, the brand name, when it comes to games. Will they attach themselves to another game? Could Pro Evo be called FIFA next year, which would be crazy, right? EA, I think, are going to be called, their game's going to be called EA FC, I think it's going to be called. And it will be interesting to see what happens there in terms of, especially in esports, the industry I'm involved in, because FIFA, being the governing body of football, have always sort of seen themselves as the governing body of e-football as well. So they've kind of set the tone on what EA can do in terms of, it's very complicated, but there's a lot of different events, and the big one culminates at the end of the year is the FIFA E-World Cup, and if you win that, you're the world champion of the game FIFA. And so FIFA would say, okay, the winner of that's going to get 200 grand, say, right? So that meant that any other event that happened at any other point in the year couldn't have a prize pot bigger than that, because that had to be the big one. EA could come out next year and go, our event winner gets 10 million.
No way.
They want to. And suddenly FIFA have got a competition on their hands. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. It's really similar to what happened with Football Manager back in the day, if you remember. It used to be called Championship Manager. And the two companies that made that game were Eidos and Sports Interactive. And they split up. And one group kept the team that made the game and all the sort of expertise. And the other side kept the name. And at the time, everyone reported it. They were like, there's no way anyone's going to buy a game that's not called Championship Manager. That's where all the sort of brand loyalty is. So these the guys that made the game, they're going to have to call it something else. They've got no chance, right? And for 1 year, they were right. Everyone went and bought Championship Manager the next year because that's what they were used to buying. But the game had dropped off a cliff because they didn't have the same people making it. And the new game was called Football Manager, which is actually a better name if you think about it, was the game they were used to be playing, but with a different name. So for me, the publishers win the battle, in my opinion. So I think EA will continue to be dominant there. But there's other games coming up as well. You know, UFL, who are our shirt sponsors, that will be released soon, I think. There's another game in the making. So it's a very competitive space, but Electronic Arts have always dominated it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today on the Yours, Mine, Away podcast with me, Mark Howard, and producer Ben. Spencer, you've been an unbelievable guest with some great insight. I've absolutely loved listening to the background of hashtag, and I can't wait to see how much you can take it and you can develop it.
Who knows? Maybe we'll see a Wrexham hashtag game in the future.
You
FA
never
Cup
know.
next year.
I don't know if
Could happen.
I'll still be playing it. I'm 36 now, but you never know.
We had
Hopefully
a
it does
43-year-old
happen.
goalkeeper, mate, so you've got plenty of years left in you.
I might get a game for you one
Yeah,
day.
get involved, mate.
Excellent. Well, hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please head over to our YouTube channel and also follow us and subscribe on Spotify or Apple, wherever you get your podcast from. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
What a save from Mark Howard.